I love fighting names. I may not be amazing at them, but I enjoy the thrill of virtually beating up another opponent, whether that be on accounts or online. With usually a large, diverse cast, there's something that you might gravitate towards. Do you love grapplers or zoners? Maybe you love retro characters, or characters that have amazing mobility skills, always on the offensive. Or maybe you love the weird pits. A lot of these archetypes usually appear, sometimes as combinations with other archetypes, so you can find your favourites. Fighting names come in all shapes and sizes, from the more 2D neutral fighters like Street Fighter, high-octane anime fighters like BlazBlue, arena fighters like Naruto Shippuden, or 3D fighters like Virtua Fighter. Existing IPs have made themselves at home to the genre, ranging from TMNT, Dragon Ball, Persona, and the topic of this video, Sonic, which so far has 2 games under its belt, if we don't count its infusion in the Smash games. Sonic's first fighting game was Sonic Championship, otherwise known as Sonic the Fighters in Japanese arcades and later releases of the game. It debuted in the arcade scene in 1996, developed by Sega AM2, who besides being Sega's go-to arcade guys, also created the influential Virtua Fighter, so combining Sega's most recognizable brand with one of the most popular genres at the time made perfect sense. Sonic the Fighters uses a Sega Model 2B-CRX, an updated kit of the Model 2 that was also used for fighting Vipers, the main reason for this game's existence. Apparently, Sonic and Tails were added into Fighting Vipers code by one of the developers of the game, and while aren't playable through normal means, were discovered by Yu Suzuki, one of the figureheads at AM2, who pitched the concept to Hiroshi Takaoka and Sonic Team, who were impressed and greenlit the project. Sonic the Fighters only had a small release in the West, but was re-released in Sonic Gems Collection on the GameCube and PS2, which was my introduction to the game, and later on Xbox Live and PSN. Unfortunately, the download versions do not exist anymore, as it was delisted years ago, but is still playable through other means, including Lost Judgment. This was actually Sonic's first proper original debut, and for his first outing into 3D, it's just wonderful. I have a soft spot for 3D games of the 90s, but thanks to the more cartoon designs that are incredibly expressive, which compared to AM2's other 3D fighters, it holds up well. You can see yams that stand, characters that get squashed, or that dizzied. It's a colourful game with a wide range of arenas, some of them being from past Sonic titles, such as South Island from Sonic 1, Casino Night Zone from Sonic 2, and Mushroom Hill from Sonic & Knuckles. The game is loud with tons of cartoony sound effects, rings drop every time someone gets hit. No, this is just for aesthetic reasons, and the music is a bop. Composed by Maki Mora, a Sega AM2 composer who did the majority of the soundtrack, and Katsunobu Mitsuyoshi, who you might know for My favourites include Canyon Cruise, Giant Wing, and Gefford's Eye. There was a hidden track that can be found on the soundtrack called Sunset Town, and it's great to listen to. Sonic the Fighters is a 3D fighting game in similar vein to Fighting Vipers that originally featured 8 playable characters, a decent size for a mid-90s fighting game, and for a pre-invented title, it's a good cast. You have your obvious picks being Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy Rose, but we do have 2 original characters made for this game, being Bart the Polar Bear, our heavyweight grappler, who packs a wallop, and Bean the Dynamite, who has a range of moves revolving around bombs, which he can hurt himself with. Bean isn't entirely original, as he's based off the 2 main playable characters from the 80s arcade game Dynamite Ducks. We also have Fang the Fang the Hunter, who debuted in the Game Gear game Sonic Triple Trouble, as well as Sonic Drift 2, who is a long-range fighter. Finally, in the original roster, we have Espio, who debuted in Knuckles Chaotix on Sega's 32X expansion. The Xbox Live and PSN version does include 3 more playable characters, the first 2 being the boss characters Metal Sonic and Dr. Eggman. Known they can only be played in Versus mode, and are OP, dealing a ton of damage to their opponents. The last character is Honey, who's originally from Fighting Vipers, now that's Sonicified, and can be played in every mode. C was yacht behind the codes in the original arcade game, but was discovered by a fan named Sonic and was added as a playable character in the versions past the Gems Jetson. C has similar moves to Knuckles and Amy, such as Knuckles' Glide and Amy's Dash Attack. My favourite characters to play are Knuckles, who's a great all-rounder, Bart with his grapple moves and strong hitting attacks, and Sonic and his varied spin dash moves. The plot is an excuse for characters to pummel each other. Dr. Eggman threatens the world with a new Death Egg, and the only way to detonate is with Tails' spaceship, which funny enough only has one seat, so each fighter decides to duke it out, to hoot and fly the spaceship, and go after Eggman. It would have been nice to get specific character endings, but other Sega games don't really have these too, so it's whatever. There are 10 stages in arcade mode with Metal Sonic as the final boss, and Eggman as a bonus boss. The Eggman fight was pretty intense for Yonder Me, as you had to knock him out with 20 seconds, otherwise you wouldn't get the good ending. Each fight in single player is a best of 3 in the last 30 seconds, which is incredibly short, but perfectly fits their quick pick up and play approach. You have a punch, kick and block button, which is simple enough. That probably would get you through the arcade mode on easy or normal difficulty, but there are mechanics to learn. Moves simply performed by button combinations, quarter circles, diagonal inputs, when an opponent is on the floor, and even some moves are exclusive when near a wall. Unlike other fighting names I'm aware of, the blocks, or as this game calls it, barriers, can be broken and are finite, discouraging defensive gameplay. Barriers can also be exchanged for characters going into hyper mode, which allows characters to easily link attacks together with vast speed, while also unlocking specific moves in exchange for power for a limited time, offering that risk-reward gameplay. This was also Sega's first fighting game to include a dedicated sidestep function by pressing punch, kick and block at the same time, while pressing a direction on the control stick. Now, if you are playing this on console, you can map this on a different button. It can be used offensively and useful against long-range attacks, but has a lot of offensive options able to break opponents' barriers as well as corner them. Characters can catch in the air by pressing the dodge action when launched into the air, as well as being able to come back down with an air attack. Sonic the Fighters was designed to be easier to play compared to its predecessors at the time, and I would say it's still fun to play with a friend. I played with my younger brother for this video, and we both had a great time. Even after 30 years, remnants of the game can still be found. Bean and Bart appeared as playable fighters in Fighters Metabits, Fang appeared as an antagonist in Sonic Superstars, and those three made cameo appearances in Sonic Mania as a boss fight. Bean, Bart and Fang appear in the artsy comics along with Honey's persona. Now, even people who play this game competitively to this day, which isn't yards, but it's nice that it's appreciated. The same cannot be said for Sonic's second attempt into the fighting genre. Unlike the previous game, I couldn't find anything substantial about the game's development besides some prototype artwork. Instead of Sega AM2, the guys at Sonic Team decided to put their own spin on the genre, going for a 4-player arena fighter on the Game Boy Advance. The genre is no shout to handheld gaming, but it's normally saved for ports of already existing titles and are usually worse than the original counterparts. So it was such a weird decision to make an original Sonic title that was designed to play with 3 other people on the Game Boy. Despite playing Sonic Battle when it came out, I wasn't able to play the multiplayer in its entirety, as it needed other people to have their own GBA, a yank cable, and a copy of the game, which was very unlikely as most people I knew mostly used the yank cable for Pokemon. But I remember playing some of the mini-games that were included, which allowed you to play with only one copy of the game. Sadly, I couldn't get anyone to play with me, so I kinda had to judge this as a single player experience. Since this was set after Heroes, we have a vast range of characters, and yeah, the choices are decent with unique moves and stats. There are 10 playable fighters altogether, which is slightly small for the time, but it's fine. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy are back. Sadly, everyone from Fighters is gone, which isn't surprising except for Espio, who was playable in Heroes that came out a year before Battle. Sadder reviews and Cream are to be expected, but are good inclusions nonetheless. It was cool to see Chaos from Adventure, and yo, my boy Gamma is back? Hell yeah! I would have expected Omega to be here, who is just as good, but I remember being pretty excited to see Gamma on the roster for the first time. Well, sort of. This isn't the actual Gamma from Adventure, but more so the E series that resemble his likeness, even using his voice samples. I guess they went with Gamma instead of Omega due to having someone they can use as mutes for the story mode. The final character is completely original and is the core to what Sonic Battle is about. ML is the main character, an ancient robot discovered by Dr. Eggman, who used him as a blueprint to use for his robots. However, after not obeying his demands, threw him out on the beach. Sonic finds ML on the beach, establishing a link with him. Sonic goes to tell Sonnen what he found, and from that point on, the story revolves around ML and his relationship with every other character, with the exception of Chaos, who is treated as an unlockable character, and Gamma being one of the common enemies. The story mode goes through multiple chapters, with each chapter focused on ML and another specific character. It's interesting how ML interacts with a bunch of characters, mimicking a lot of their likeness, like Knuckles' confidence, as well as seeing other characters like Ruse use him as a partner in crime. I also really like Shadows and ML's connection, showing their similarities, being artificially created, and their purpose to serve, which both characters struggle throughout their experiences. The only character I particularly hated was Amy, which the writers turned her obsession with Sonic to 100, going as far as thinking ML is a practice baby for her delusional future with Sonic. She even starts talking about getting into shape for Sonic, which feels gross. The story for the most part is pretty decent, however it's the progression that fumbles. ML has the ability to copy abilities from other fighters after witnessing them in a battle, and this is converted into gameplay, as after each fight, ML learns a random move from each participant. It's a neat concept, but the execution is terrible, as each move you get can be repeated, which is a big no for me. I hated grinding to get custom moves in Smash 4, and I hate it here. The story offers grind spots for each character for ML to learn, but it sucks that I would have to grind for it. And by the end of the campaign, I didn't even bother getting 20% of the moves list. The campaign is beatable without unlocking everything, but even progressing through the story is a chore, especially at the beginning, as ML's moves and stats are absolute trash. The fights take place in 3D arenas, allowing up to 4 characters at once. The rules can range from being the last one to stand, to getting a certain amount of KOs before anyone else. Each character has the basic standard combo, air moves, etc., but also have 3 types of special moves: long range, short range, and trap moves. Before you spawn or respawn into the arena, you can share each type in any order, which gives you different attacks. It's a neat solution for the hardware's limitation. Unfortunately, the actual combat is dreadfully dull, with most fights requiring one type of strategy. Fighters can press the L button to restore health, as well as fill a meter that once filled up can perform a one-hit KO move. And during most fights, just running away to charge up your meter was the best strategy. This is especially true on 1 or 2 occasions where some fights would have 3 CPUs pitted against you. And what's even worse is that these were all Gamma, who have the ability to explode when they die, which 9 out of 10 times would just deplete most of my health. In my playthrough of the game, I unlocked Ruse's air kit, which allowed me to stay in one place and just spam it, as I will mostly just be in the air at all times. Another thing is that fights can drag on way too long. Most of the fights start with knocking out somebody 5 times, and then immediately after beating the same person, knocking them out 10 more times. The campaign is only 8 chapters, with each chapter taking about an hour or so, but I was just on autopilot all the way through. The story mode is boring, and unfortunately there isn't a lot of fun to be had by yourself. There is the arcade mode, but the method of winning is the same, and the only single player minigame is Minesweeper. Riveting. It's sad to say that the plot was the only good thing worth noting out, but not even that kept me from being invested in playing Sonic Battle. Both games are at the opposite spectrum, with Sonic the Fighters being an enjoyable pastime and Sonic Battle being a slow, boring experience. I would love to see the series at another start in the genre, and I'm aware that fans have made their own, but it would be cool to see an official one. I would love to see a sequel to the 90s arcade game. Before I end the video, I would love to know what is your favourite Sonic spin-off. For me, that will be coming up next in the Sonic month, so I hope you look forward to it.